Let's do it, man.
Let's do it. I actually listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast on the way over here.
Oh, nice.
I think it's so funny. Like, so entrepreneur is like a huge kind of like hot word
right
now, you know?
Right.
And I thought it was so interesting listening to that it's like you were kind of like the opposite of almost everyone in the sense that like most people are on Instagram being an entrepreneur.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, my goal is to be an entrepreneur. And you kind of did it, like, happened upon it, right? It was almost like, not quite accidental.
Sure.
But like, I don't see you posting with a Rolls Royce, on
sure.
Instagram, whatever. I think that's so funny.
Yeah, and like for me, like I think a lot of that is, like, when Bigger Pockets aired, it was like I had all my family and all my friends for the first time. They were like, "Oh, right. You're like an entrepreneur, and you actually like figured it out." And I was like, "Well, the reality is, I've been doing this for like 5 years, but I just like." I just don't like to post about it, whatever. Like, I don't want anybody to ever treat me any different because they shouldn't. Because, like, at the end of the day, like, whether I have $0 or a bajillion dollars or you have $0 or a bajillion dollars, like, your friends should still be your friends. Nothing should change because you're still Reed, I'm still Brennan. And that's kind of my philosophy. There are a lot of, any rap song will tell you, like, the moment you make money, you need to go buy all this stuff. And, like, almost, yeah, there you go. My silicone wedding ring, but like level up their friends, right? And in my brain, I'm just like, at the end of the day, like I just think you have to disassociate like any kind of like success, whether it's in the corporate ladder or entrepreneurship, with like your personal life. Does it make sense? And so like for me, like my Instagram when I had one was a joke. It was called Brennan's Bedhead.
I remember that. Yeah, I think I follow that still.
Yeah, I don't even think I have Instagram anymore. But it was just like I started as a joke because sometimes I have good bedhead, and it was almost like my anti-entrepreneur classic. You know, like I don't necessarily think you have to look like an entrepreneur on social media to be one. I don't think that actually contributes at all to anyone's success except for your own ego, in my opinion, right? And so it's like,
unless your business is growing an entrepreneur Instagram,
sure,
then
sure, yeah, and the reality is it's smoke and mirrors. It's all like, it's called like faux millionaire, where it's just like 40K millionaire, right? Where it's like you have these people who are gonna go rent a Lambo for a day or find one in the streets and take a picture and pretend it's theirs. That's everywhere on Instagram.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, like for me, it's just like I never want any amount of any kind of success at all ever to change like anything about my life. Like I want to be comfortable. And I'm not saying that I am. I'm not sitting here saying I have millions of dollars in the bank. But it's just like when Bigger Pockets came out, everybody suddenly thought that, and everybody was like reaching out to me and like I got like 100 phone calls the day that I posted it, and I was like so surprised because I was like, it's not like anything in my life had changed.
Yes, now they know about certain
No,
things.
it wasn't like some big break. It was just like I kept thinking that there was going to be a big break eventually. Mm-hmm. I always thought like this is my big break. Like for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing the same thing. I've been slowly building this wedding business, and I kept thinking like this is the big break. And I learned there's no big break. I mean, maybe in like the world of like singing or like entertainment there is, but for me it's like most of the time it's a slow churn. It's a slow grind. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? It's like, and so suddenly all these people reaching out to me, and I was like, yeah, but nothing has changed at all. Like if anything, it was worse because of COVID. Like I posted it in the middle of COVID, and I was like, if anything, like it's a little bit worse now than it was then. But yeah, it was just kind of funny. Like all these people reaching out to me, and they're like, "Oh, I guess you finally made it." And I was like, "Well, sure." But nothing changed.
Yeah,
like
now you finally know, but I've been doing this for
years, and I had family members that like still thought I was shooting weddings. Mm-hmm. I still have people that like, because I used to be a freelancer that started as a freelancer, and then I slowly worked myself out of the freelance job and started managing the freelancers, and then hired a manager and slowly worked up until I don't have to work anymore. But yeah, man, I still have family members that are like, hey, will you, I have a friend who has a wedding, will you shoot it? And I'm like, I haven't shot a wedding in, a long time because I don't anymore. And it's hard for some people to be like, wait, what do you mean you don't shoot weddings? Tolman Media. I'm like, well, yeah, but like, I don't shoot weddings. Like, it's just, and like, cause I don't want to like publicize, like, here's what I'm doing now. But it's just been this really slow grind. And then finally when Bigger Pockets happened, everybody was like, oh, I actually understand what you do now.
Yeah.
Like I actually get
that happened to me too.
What
I
you
listened
do.
To it and I was like, oh, I get it. Because So I had kind of pieced it together a little bit, but never really figured it out because I know you had
Hmm.
Tolman Media, and I heard
Right.
something about like licensing, but
Sure.
I didn't really realize. I thought that it was like you had like a team,
Yeah.
which I guess you do, but
True.
like a big team. I thought it was like, well, I am a photographer, but now I have like a couple photographers,
And that's true.
and that's kind of maybe how it started.
Yeah. So so basically, how it started is I was shooting weddings
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
and a million people shoot weddings.
Right.
Like it was really interesting that when I was in high school, a video kid was a little bit nerdy. Instagram hadn't come out just yet.
Yeah.
It wasn't what it is now, where like everybody wants to be good at video.
Yeah.
And I always would say in high school, like, video needs to be required because it's going to be a huge part of the future. But
you're
it wasn't.
right.
It wasn't. Yeah, here we are. But like it wasn't. It was really just like it was still your STEM and your whatever. And so I learned video. I did everything I could to like get really good at video. And it was a little nerdy. Not our school was different because we went to high school together. But Lehigh was a little bit cooler than it was.
It was a little bit cooler. Yeah.
But like when you would go to like the Utah High School Film Festival, it was all these kids that were like, "Oh, I love video," and you were like, "Where am I?" So, but then like I went on my mission, served in Taiwan, and I came back thinking it was going to be the same thing. Nobody did video, and so I got like hired like 10 times, in high school to shoot weddings, and they were like paying me $500-600, which for a high schooler was like tons of money. And I got home and I was like, "Oh, it's going to be so easy to shoot weddings again." And I get home and all these people were suddenly shooting weddings that never touched a camera in high school. And I was like, what?
Yep.
How is it this easy for everybody to just like go buy one at Costco and now they're a photographer?
Yeah.
And it was so hard for me to like, I was like, no. Like I have done this for 10 years. They picked a camera up a year, but how do you differentiate yourself? And so I struggled with that. And so then in college, I ended up finding my business partner, Nick. Well, he's 10 years older than me, but I found him through an assignment in college. And we had to go look up businesses for sale on KSL, and I ended up texting him, and we ended up meeting, and I paid him to teach me how to do Facebook advertising. Because I was like, I've seen Facebook ads. I don't know how to run Facebook ads. If I could learn, it would be huge for my life,
Right.
And so then I started running ads for me. Hire me to shoot weddings for you, kind of a thing. And it worked like wildfire. Like suddenly I was just like getting texts like crazy. So then I was like, cool. I'm going to hire my friend Tim. You probably kind of remember Tim. He was in drama. We did video all growing up together. And so I was like, I'm going to hire Tim to go shoot weddings for me. And I don't know if it's going to work because they're expecting Brennan. It was called Brennan Tolman Media back in the day. And then Tim showed up. They had a great experience. And I was like, there's something here. Yeah. If I can have Tim go shoot it like I sold the wedding, Tim fulfilled it. So then we started hiring more people. And so then it got to the point where like I had 5, and it was all out of necessity. I'd be like, Tim, can you shoot a wedding on May 10th? No, I don't want to. Well, I want to sell it. So I'm like, I'm just going to sell the package anyways. And I'm going to go find somebody to fulfill it. I mean, it's literally flying by the seat of your pants. And so, and it sucked because it's like you have some it's a huge gamble. You're rolling the dice. Yeah. But I took the deposit, and then I would go and find and train somebody before May 10th. Luckily, weddings are like 3 to 5 months away, so I had time to get somebody ready. And then it kept happening, where I was like, I would rather say yes to you and take it. If you want to give me your money so bad, okay, I'll go hire somebody to take it. And so then I would like take their money, and then I would go hire somebody and train them. And then eventually I was like, okay, I got to make the training easier because I am actually like going with them, and it's this big. So then I developed a course called Wedding Mastery, where it's like I filmed it in a studio. It was really professional, and it's me teaching everything I would have taught them one-on-one. And then every time I brought on a photographer, instead of me ever talking to them, I just said, go through the course and take a test. And they did. And then once they did it, I said, now I'm going to go give you a wedding and hope you don't screw it up. And it was really successful.
My name's on it.
Yeah, exactly. And so then it worked. I was like, oh, this course worked. I standardized the training process, so now I never have to do that again. So then they started going through the course, and then I was like, I can just bring on unlimited amounts of people now. Because they, I don't have to put any time into it. So then they started going through the course over and over again. And then we had a huge issue of scheduling. We were still texting everybody, are you free? Are you free? And when the team got to where we had like 25 contractors and we were doing like 500 weddings a year, that's so many texts. Yeah. And so then Nick came back a couple years later. He taught me how to do Facebook ads. I was a client a couple years ago. He came back like 3 years later, and he was like, hey, I've been watching you on Facebook, and your company's blowing up with what I taught you. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of want to be a part of it. And I was like, please, like he was my mentor. Like I worshiped this guy, and he was like asking me to be my business partner. And I was like, let's do it. And so I said, what we really need is software to help us schedule these guys, because it's all manual right now. We need to automate that piece. So he and I and a team, Tim and some of the founders of the business worked together to develop a software that we named Dragon Sumo. Stupid name, but I bought the domain in high school, and I was like, hey, I have the domain. And, and I was like, and I own the company, I'm doing what I want. So, and basically what the software is all the photographers join the software when we sell a wedding, right? They're all trained, so they all know how to do it the Tolman way. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as we sell a wedding, we send out a notification on the software, and all 25 get it, and it says May 25th, whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm free that day. And so 5 photographers who are free that day, they're like, oh, it's in Salt Lake, whatever. They're going to basically bid on the job. So I tell them the maximum you can bid is $400 because that's what we have to pay you, but it's only for 4 hours of work, $100 an hour.
Yeah.
And they can still book their own weddings. And so then if they want it, totally on them, they can submit their price. Well, maybe they really want a wedding, so they're going to do it for $350. Mm-hmm. And then all the photographers bid. And then it spits out basically the winner based on an algorithm that does their quality versus their bid. So we, the client always gets the best videographer, and
for the cheapest price.
We always get the cheapest price. Because, so we can save money, So then we developed that. That took months. That was all last summer. Mm-hmm. Developing that software, beta testing it, trying to figure it out. And Nick was, he came in and did all that because I don't know how to do software, Uh-huh. But I would help with it's called wireframing, to actually say, this is what it needs to do. Uh-huh. Here's the functions. So we worked really hard all summer, and we finally got it live. And then it was like this super smooth system where it was just like, we run ads. We know which images and which videos will always get us a bride for X amount of dollars. I know that if I run this image, it's going to be $70 to book a $1,500 package every time. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I book it, I'm going to send it out, and my margins are actually going to end up being better because on average, I'm saving $30 to $40 below what I've budgeted to pay them thanks to the bidding, thanks to the app. So we had this really cool system. The problem was we were broke because we had so many, as our needs arose and as the team got bigger, people had a lot more questions. And so we ended up just doing what we thought we were supposed to do, which is just hire 1 million people on W-2, which, is as an employee. And so we got an office, and we hired all these secretaries, and we just hired all these people. And so we never had any money ever, because we were just constantly, we'd make 50, 60, 70,000 a month, all gone. Bank account would be $10 at the end of the month because we were paying everybody. And which is fine, but when you pay somebody W-2, as an employee, they're incentivized to have their butt in a chair as long as possible.
Yeah.
As opposed to performance-based, where you get paid when you do a certain task.
Yeah.
So I was frustrated. We were broke. We had this amazing system, and we were totally broke. And then last August, Nick came to me and said, dude, we need to pivot or I'm out of here. Here's what we need to do. I have an idea. Let's license out the system. And I was like, isn't that franchising? And he was like, no, it's different because franchising, they are a part of your company. Mm-hmm. McDonald's is a part of the McDonald's headquarters, and therefore they you have to cook a patty X amount of seconds every time.
Yeah. If
you start burning it, you will lose your franchise, right? Mm-hmm. Licensing, you literally just say, here's what I have some fun, good luck. If you change it, if you change it to, read media, you can use all the same systems, but you can change the name. They can do whatever they want, because in franchising, you have compliance. You have your McDonald's M needs to be this exact hue of yellow. In licensing, you're basically just saying, here are the rights to use all the photos we've ever taken, all the softwares that we've built, all the systems that we've built. Go crazy.
So when someone buys a license, they buy leads, and they buy the system,
right.
The training. Is that right?
Yeah. So exactly. So then what happened is, right. We basically had to package this so if you went and bought Kentucky or whatever, you could immediately, as an owner of the business, turn on what we have in Utah and Kentucky, right? So what a licensee gets, and we call them our partners because they're partnering with us to expand the business. What they actually get is, we run their ads for them, and so then the owner doesn't have to do anything. They're an owner, not an operator of the business. So if you take the financial risk to buy Kentucky, then it's anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. Well, it was. We don't have any more areas available, but if $2,000 to $10,000 to buy initial down payment, and let's say the area actually costs like the business in Kentucky is worth $80,000 based on how many weddings. We're only going to make them put $5,000 like down, and then they actually pay us back performance based. So
nice.
You would pay that $80,000 back with like 6% of every sale. So what it does is it says we make like a covenant to like the partners where we say we have to help you do good, or we'll never get paid back.
Right.
And if you don't succeed, we'll never get paid back. And they're like, that's a great point. And so we're like, we try to make this as risk-free for you as possible because like we are so confident that it's going to work for you that think about that. Let's say the area costs $100,000, and they have it, and they're paying it back with 10% of every sale. We have to help them make $1 million before we even get paid back for what the area costs.
Right.
You know what I mean? So so that's how we did it, is we structured the deals in that way, and then because of that, we had all these entrepreneurs that they were like skeptical. They would buy like one territory, we would turn on their ads. And so the owner, like if you bought Kentucky, doesn't actually work. They hire a salesperson to talk to the incoming leads and talk to the brides and then sell them. And then they hire a manager whose job it is to go recruit the local contractors and actually handle all fulfillment. And we train the salesperson and manager. Okay. So the owner doesn't even need to do anything. They literally need to just take the risk, and then they need to hire those two people, and then they send them over to us, and we train them, and we provide ongoing training for them, and then they basically are like off to the races. We tell the owner, you don't even have to know anything about weddings. You just need to know how to run a business, how to set your margins. And so it's like compartmentalized, where like the owner just needs to be good at only one thing. The salesperson only needs to be good at one thing. And so it made it really attractive. A couple people like bought some areas and they started making a ton of money, which honestly surprised me because I was like, oh man, I didn't know it was going to work for them. And so then like we had this guy in South Carolina who booked 6 his first week.
Wow.
I mean, that's like $8,000 collected.
Yeah, dang.
His first week. I think he spent like $200 in ads. I mean, that's insane. That's the most crazy. And I was like, I wish I could do that in Utah.
Yeah.
But he did it over there because the market is different and prices are more expensive. And then he was like, I want more. And so all these people came back to start buying more territories. So most of our owners own like 5 because then they were like, okay, now I want this one too.
See that it works.
Yeah, because you can have the same salesperson, same manager run your 5 areas. So now that I've explained all that, I still own Utah, I own Arizona, I own San Diego and San Francisco, like those areas. And I have a team that actually
a team of photographers and
videographers. I have a manager who's amazing. I have a salesperson, 4 salespeople, and their jobs are to basically run the entire like that branch. But then I also own the licensing
for the everywhere.
Yeah, the actual license company. So I do have both. It is both. It's like if somebody wants to hire Tolman Media Utah for a wedding, they're going to get one of our amazing photographers, videographers in Utah. I will, I probably won't even hear about it most of the time because there's a manager that, her name's Chelsea, and she just handles everything. And she's the boss. And so basically, I tell her, I'm like, you're the boss of these 4 areas. Like, I'm kind of like up in the clouds. I don't exist,
Yeah.
So what it's done is it's given me like time freedom to actually pursue like other projects. And so eventually, maybe we'll sell the overarching Tolman, like the whole national company, but I would still keep my areas because they're separate businesses.
Are there other companies like that? Do you have competitors in that same space?
There are franchises for weddings. I mean, there's nobody that's done what we've done yet. There will be. It'll happen. Right. Yeah, I guess I just gave away all the secrets, right? So maybe somebody can start it. But there really aren't. There's some companies that do it, but the way that they do it is like it's more of like a global approach, and so it's called like Evians, and it's really cheap. But they only pay their photographers like $8 an hour. And so it's the same concept, but we pay ours like $80 to $100 an hour, and it's local. And so that like the idea is, we could have like expanded across the nation from an office in Provo, but we would never understand what a Kentucky bride actually goes through, and we would never understand what their photographers actually do. Or we can let an entrepreneur buy Kentucky. He or she laser focuses on only Kentucky, understands Kentucky, gives Kentucky the love and growth that it needs, and then Kentucky will explode because there's one person focusing on like just Kentucky. And so it was faster. And in 6 months we sold out of the nation, I don't know about Alaska, but we sold out of the nation, and then like now we're doing international. So we're selling. I think we've sold almost all of the UK. We have sold all of Canada, and we're starting like South Africa's in the works. Like now they're actually starting to. You're good, but like now, now we're actually starting to do international, and it's just fun to watch like people succeed. With like. I mean, dude, I never thought it would be like this, but I always knew, like, I just kept improving the garbage. Like, entrepreneurship looks so flashy and cool. And at the end of the day, like, I have learned that the best way to, like, make money yourself is to help others make money. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we only make money. We're going to take a tiny, 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 tiny sliver of what they do. Mm-hmm. So we have to help them make a ton of money and be successful in order to take a tiny percentage of that. Yeah. And it's a pretty solid deal where it's like they're happy because they're making a lot of money, and we're committed to helping them improve. And then we ended up hiring a president to run the business because I was like, I don't know how to run a national business, and I have no desire to run a national company, at all. Like I wanted the kind of the time freedom to be able to pursue other projects. And so we hired a president and we said, we'll just pay you X% of whatever royalties come in. So if he does better, he'll scale his pay significantly, and he's awesome, And so it's like, it has kind of like, now I don't really even run it anymore. I'll get questions about it and I can't even answer them. Yeah. They're like, hey, tell me, Tolman, there's a system that I'm like, I don't even know because I don't even do anything for it anymore. Right. Like I own it all still, but there's a president who runs it. My manager runs my areas, and I've kind of like stepped away from the day-to-day operations of that and jumped into like a million other things that are more of like passion projects and helping other entrepreneurs. So now we're trying to like help other people turn their businesses into a licensing business. Okay. Now that we've done it, and I like I said, we were broke, we were screwed. It was terrifying, and I was so worried that we were like it was going to be game over. And so to see the power of like just changing the model a little bit, I'm like, dude, I want to help other people do that, And so that's kind of like what I'm doing like work wise now. But it's always fun. People are like, what do you do for work? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know to tell you like if I have a job because I kind of don't, Like I don't really have a job because I don't have to do anything XYZ every day. So
it's interesting. The business model, I actually had the, I guess, misunderstanding. I thought that you were selling just licenses. Licensees that were photographers and videographers, but you're actually selling a business that then gets photographers. So it's like a whole level up from that.
Yeah, and it's like basically what they're buying is our pain for the last 5 years. Every time we encountered a problem, we had to figure out how to solve it, document it, replicate it. So for example, photographer was late. How do you handle that? It sucks when you hear that. Yeah. It's your name, and you get a really mad mom that calls you and says, I'm so mad at you because the photographer was late and you ruined my special day. I now have to go figure out, do I fire the photographer? No, I learned that if you actually call the photographer, the mom gave her the wrong address. So of course she was. So I learned, like the first time I just like fired 3 people because I thought customer's always right. And then I realized that wasn't true because, no offense, brides are nuts. People who got married, they're nuts, and their moms are even more nuts. Yep. And so now, then I learned, actually, that was the wrong way. I needed to go and hear both stories, and the best thing I can do is get a 3-way phone call going where they can talk it out, because I wasn't there. They can talk it out, and then we can come to a resolution. So I had to learn that after getting yelled at a million times, how to deal with that, and then I documented it in a handbook. When this situation happens, here is what to do. And I did that every time any problem ever came up. Camera overheats. I mean, who's really at fault? What do you do when they come to you and talk to you about that? And so really what these entrepreneurs were buying was, yes, a system that makes them money, but 5 years worth of solving a problem, documenting it. And so if you go by Kentucky, we hand your manager the handbook. So anytime that comes up, she knows exactly how to handle it the proper way. And never has to like go through that herself. So like that is really what they bought. They did buy a system that knows how to make money, but it doesn't matter if you can't fulfill. And so like any franchise like McDonald's or anything, because that's what it's most similar to, That's what you're buying. Is you're buying how do you make a burger so that somebody wants it? How do you solve a customer service issue? What you're buying handbooks. And so like that's like my biggest advice to people who, if you have an awesome business system, whatever it is, and you can't expand nationally yourself because you need some local, I guess, like love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then just document everything. Also, if you ever want to sell someday, you should be able to walk away from it and hand them the handbook, and they should be able to read it and know how to run everything. If you ever and you could do this with anything. Like my business partner Nick, before we did all this stuff, like he would get a job, at like a W-2, 40 a year job, and he would take the handbook, and he would hire somebody overseas to do the job for like $4,000 a year. And they were better than him.
It.
Oh yeah, and it was a work from home job, and the client was like thrilled, because it's called Upwork.com. It's a website. He hired somebody. He gave them the handbook, and if the handbook is good enough, anybody should be able to read it and then go do the job.
Yeah.
And it was, and so that person went and did the job.
He just got like 10 jobs at once.
Exactly. And he had all these W-2 jobs, and the fact is, like, you might say, oh, that's so unethical, but is it? Because the job was done.
The job was done just as well.
And it was done better.
He wins. The person overseas wins.
And the company wins because the job is... And like, somebody overseas, $4,000 is huge for somebody in, like, Malaysia. Mm-hmm. And so, like, they win because they... that overseas person, they're never going to get it. Like, they aren't going to find a job that big. And so, anyways, it's just like, if you look at life totally differently through a different perspective, like I've always been really non-conventional since high school. I always wanted to do it the exact opposite way from everybody else. And so like you can find ways that everybody wins, but people are going to think you're nuts when you actually like go try it. We can pause if you want.
Oh no, it's fine.
Okay,
that's a little,
sorry. Yeah, we're outside and I'm by the freeway. So
someone's getting pulled over.
Yeah, seriously. It's pretty loud. There's like 8 cars. Yeah, but anyways. So yeah, I don't know. It's like that's really what we did is we dealt with anxiety attacks and issues and problems for years, so that now the person who buys a Tolman media area doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, really what they got is, yes, a system that makes money, but also a system that will not give them the headaches that we dealt with.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting is like kind of in the entrepreneurial world. I come from the summer sales world, and so there's a lot of vibes of like it's a competition.
Totally.
And so when you talk about like negotiating or getting prices or getting clients, I mean, I think a lot of people don't look at it as like, hey, I want to help you win as much as you can. And hearing kind of your outlook on it, it's kind of eye opening because you're not trying to like milk people for as much as you can. You just seem to come from it from a very different angle.
And I mean, I'm not competitive. Like, we went to high school. Like, I did not do sports. I actually entered like a film festival like 6 times. Never won. Finally, I won 2nd place, and they spelled my name wrong. But no, yeah. So I'm not super like I'm not competitive. I've always just kind of viewed. I'm like really nice. I'm a good cop. I've always viewed the world as like, I want to make friends. I want the other person to win. And that sucks because for the first few years of entrepreneurship, I got taken advantage of because of that.
Yeah.
Because I would have people that like knew that my levels of generosity were pretty high, and so they would like just come to me with a sob story and whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I had to learn how to like stand your ground, but also like and say no and be a little bit more tough. But my like negotiation, I guess like philosophy comes from Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, and when he negotiates, and he has negotiated some of the massive, like the most massive deals ever, Pixar, Star Wars, Fox, with this same strategy where most people go in there and it's like they're trying all these techniques to try to like pull the wallet out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He's like, move the needle more towards me.
Totally.
Instead of you. Yeah. How much can I get out of you?
Right. And Bob Iger, and this is something that always stuck with me, he literally just starts with all cards on the table. He doesn't hide any cards, right? When you negotiate, you hide the cards. You hide the discount. Like, I'm gonna try to get you the top price. I've got all these cards behind. I can actually give you this discount. And what he does is he literally just sits down and he just like, listen, man, I'm not gonna like negotiate with you. Like, I want this to be fair for you, and it has to. And here's what I need it to be for me. Now let's talk about how we can get it there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he starts every deal. And for some people who are like into the negotiation and the sales game, that's, you never do that. You know, but
Right.
like that's what I've done, and it's a double-edged sword. Like it works sometimes, but it also, you can get really, really taken advantage of. And so like, you know, like I read a book one time that said like there's 3 types of negotiators. So imagine that there's cards on the table between like you and I, and type 1 is like I am going, like you tell them, I'm going to steal your cards. I'm letting you know right from the start, I am going to be taking your money. And they're just honest. And those are the people we know as like sharky, right?
Yeah.
Like we all know people like that who it's
Yep.
just like, at least they're honest about it, where they're
Yeah.
just like, I will be taking your money. You will be paying me.
Uh-huh.
And that's how they like start the negotiation. And then there's type 2 who's like, I would never take your money, Reed. And then they like, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
they secretly steal the money because like, and then there's the third type who's like, I don't want your money. I feel so guilty. I don't want to take your money. Like, I don't like taking money from people because it just makes me feel uncomfortable. But then at the end of the day, you finally take it anyways.
Uh-huh.
Like
Uh-huh.
very grudgingly. And those are like the 3 types of negotiators. And I'm more type 3 where it's just like, I hate taking money
I'm
from
sorry.
people. Right. And so, but I'm really good at building products. And so I usually don't negotiate with people. That's what Nick does. Nick is the master negotiator. I build a system where everybody can win.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nick sells it however he wants to go and negotiate and like sell it. But at the end of the day, like even if he is like sharky, I don't really care because I know that I've built something where they're gonna win.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it was like a piece of garbage car and I didn't know if it was gonna explode in 5 seconds or not, like I would have tremendous guilt selling something. Like if he was really sharky selling them and we had no idea the outcome. But because I knew, well, I've actually been successful in this for years, like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of this good yin yang. Like I'll build something that I am proud to sell and I know they're going to win. And then he can go shark it up however he wants because that does work. And neither of us have to feel guilty at the end of the day. Like he'll go get us a lot of money from people and I won't feel bad because I know they're going to win. And they do win, you know?
Uh-huh. I saw this thing on Instagram the other day. It was like one of those, I don't know, entrepreneur guru guys. And he used the example of like, hey, someone come up here and give me $20 and I'll give you $100. And, you know, like everyone was like, oh yeah, of course I'll do that. And they came up and they gave him $20 and he gave him $100 bill. And basically the premise was like, you don't need to feel like you need to negotiate so hard and trick and do like a card behind your back. And like, aha, like there's no engine in the car. Gotcha.
Right.
When you're providing so much more value, like any price less than $100 worth of value, you're going to feel good at.
Right.
Because you're giving them that value. You know?
Sure.
And so that's kind of seems like what you're saying. Like, hey, I built a system.
Right.
I know it works.
Right.
Basically, if like I feel it's worth a lot, and so
Right.
basically whatever you're paying for it, you're getting a good deal because it's a great product.
Right. Yeah, and exactly. And like we had I remember before we figured out our pricing model, our no risk pricing model where they pay it back with a percentage. Before we had that, we were doing just like, hey, $20,000-$30,000 get like franchises, $30,000, give us your life savings, and you'll get this business, but you don't owe anything else. Like you just
That's it. You
scotch free.
Take it and run.
We sold a couple of those. They were really hard because it's just a lot more money. It's bigger than like $3,000, right? And so, but we sold one, and I was so nervous. To a guy in Boston, he bought the area of Boston, and I was like, dude, I hope it works for him.
Yeah.
And it was that guilt of like, I hope he can have success. In the first 10 days, he opened his Square account to process the bride's payments. He processed like $4,000. And then like he booked a bunch of weddings. He put down 30. In the first 10 days, he made back $4,000. And there's like a 50% profit margin on that. And the DEA shut his Square account down because they thought he was drug dealing. Because he was making too much money for somebody who just opened an account. And he was pissed, but I was thrilled because I was like, dude, do you understand what that means?
Dude,
like,
that's like
it works.
That's like one of those bucket list items. Like, yeah, it shut down because I made too much money.
Like I said, he was so mad. And I was like, dude, no, like, look at this. Like, you made too much money. And he's already paid, he's made like $50,000 now. And that was like less than 6 months ago. And so he's already made his money back. But like he got shut down. And then I actually took that example and used that in the sales process where I was like, let me tell you what happened in Boston. Like he made that much money. And one thing that's cool is like my sister the other day was like, hey, how many of these areas are working? And I was like, all of them. And she was like, what? I was like, no, they're all making money. Everyone, because we don't have overhead. Your salesperson only gets paid if they sell something. You know, your manager only gets paid if something gets sold, if there's something to do. And so they're not losing money. If they don't book anything, they just don't lose any money. Most businesses, if you close down for 3 months because of COVID, you have to pay, you know, your mortgage on the building or your rent, and you have utilities, and you have a lot of expenses you have to keep paying. With this, there's nothing, you know? So it's like, at the end of the day, like, I believe in, like, value creation, you know? Like, I was like, you know, I'd love to be rich. I don't want to be famous. I don't ever care to be famous, you know? Like, everyone says rich and famous. I'm like, I'll just take the first half, thank you. I don't want to be famous, like, ever, you know? Like, I just want to, like, be, like, hometown, whatever, life not change too much. But, like, if you want to be rich, if anybody wants to be rich, all you have to do is create value for somebody else. That's it. I mean, you know, a lot of salespeople think, like, I need to take the most money from somebody else. That's not true. You literally just need to, like, solve a problem for them. And it's not that hard to come up with a good business idea. All you need to do is, like, if you're in an industry, you know, like software sales or basketball or whatever, you just need to ask, like, 10 people in that industry, what frustrates you about, you know, basketball, about weddings. And I just asked brides, like, what frustrates you about booking or planning your wedding? And they were like, it frustrates me. I have to go hire a photographer that has a completely different contract and I only have 5.5 hours there. And then I have to go hire a completely separate videographer who does not know the photographer, who cannot work together with them. And I'm only going to get 3 hours of coverage here, and they need a weird lunch break. And like, how am I supposed to balance 2 contracts? And I was like, what if I packaged them together? And that's what Tolman is we package for the bride. We package it together for a pretty low price so that they can never have, like, and they know each other. Like, when Tolman Media photographer and videographer show up, they know each other. So they actually, like, work together. They shoot around each other. I can't tell you, when I shoot a wedding with the person I don't know, how many times their head covers the bride. I'm filming, and then the photographer will get in my way. But see, I only know that because I'm in the wedding industry. Right? And I would have never known that if I'm not in it. There are pain points in every industry. And I remember, dude, like, when I first started college, I was filming weddings because it made money and I was trying to pay for my life. And I had, like, a film kid friend from high school, not our high school, but a different one, who came up to me and he was like, oh, you're still shooting weddings? Well, if you loved film, you would actually do real film. And then he walked away and I was like, dude, it was a punch in the face. And I was like, I'm going to prove that kid wrong. I'm going to prove to him that weddings are real film. And so, like, you asked me earlier, like, has anybody ever done this? No. Like, there's not wedding empires that exist like this. You know, it was like a pioneer of, like, one of the first to do it like this. It was the very first way. Yes, people have taken pictures forever. Yes, people have done video forever. But nobody has actually ever, like, packaged it all in this exact way. And so, like, I don't know. At the end of the day, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, look at the industries that you're in. What do? Ask people what frustrates you. And if you get a similar answer, then you're like, cool, I got to go solve that. Or, you know, if you're not in any industries that you feel you want to work in, go get in some industries. Like one time when my business was making a couple $100,000 a year, like, and I didn't really need a job. Like, I got offered a job to go work on the set of a TV show. And I didn't need to do that, but I was like, and it was going to require me driving up to Salt Lake, and I was in Provo at the time. It was like an hour and a half commute.
What show was it?
It was Relative Race. So it was a BYU show. It was kind of new, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it because I want to understand the industry. I don't care about the money. And I totally got fired after 2 weeks because I couldn't commit for the whole year. After doing it for 2 weeks, they were like, hey, we need you to commit for the entire year. And I was like, I'm not interested. I don't want to do this for a year, you know? But I did it for 2 full weeks. I worked my butt off. I learned a lot about the TV industry. And now I know a lot about the TV industry. I know the pain points they have. And so someday I can solve problems in the TV industry. If you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
so it's like, sometimes, like, you don't need a job or you have no interest in working construction or a pizza business. But, like, working at, I worked at Little Caesars too. You learn the type of problems that people have at Little Caesars and then you can go fix it. You know, and so it's like, I would just say, like, go explore industries, or if you're in an industry, ask questions about that industry, because, like, nobody ever thought that weddings was going to be able to be a multi-million-dollar business. Nobody thought you could do that, you know, and myself included, you know what I mean? But, like, step by step by step by step, like as we solved problems for brides, they were willing to give us money. It wasn't that we had better marketing, although we do, but it's like it was that we solved more of their problems than anyone else on Instagram, you know? And so that's why the whole flashy entrepreneurship stuff of like, check out my Lambo.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not solving anyone's problems by doing that. You're not helping. In fact, you're actually creating a problem. You're hurting people's, sorry.
You're loving the bigger podcast. I like you said before, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's funny because the reason why we got onto even doing a podcast was because of your Scottish land.
That's right. That's right.
And then next thing I know, you're like, oh yeah, I have like a multi-million-dollar wedding business that I've been running and everything. I think that is so funny.
Yeah, it's yeah, dude, it's just funny because like at the end of the day, like it's, you know, it's cool to have a business that's like successful, but like I said, for me, it's just the most important that like I don't care if anybody ever knows that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Some people like to buy that fame. Yes. You know, they like to buy that recognition. Or at least, you know, fake recognition. They'll buy the designer clothes and they'll whatever. Like for me, it's like I spend my money on comfort and experiences. Those are my two things. And everybody's different, you know. But for me, it's like I like to be comfortable, and so I'll buy something that is the most comfortable for me. You know, and then I'll buy, you know, experiences, which is why, you know, my wife and I are usually gone about half the time. We like to travel a lot. Yeah. Because like, I don't know, like I'm like a fireball, and I work these 18-hour days most days when I'm home, and then like I associate home because I work from home with working 18-hour days, and so there's always work to be done. I mean, even still, like we started 5 new businesses in the middle of the COVID. Because weddings slowed down, and so we were like, "What's next?" You know, like can't travel, can't do anything. What's next?
What did you start?
So many. So I mean, like one is a business where we're already selling photo video packages. Yeah. Well, then brides need DJ, floral, all sorts of services. So once they've booked with us, referring them to local DJs, bringing on Tolman Media preferred vendors or whatever, selling them leads that are like hot and ready to close because they want to work with the Tolman Media preferred vendors. Because, you know, so that's one thing that's been tons of coding and background stuff to try to automate forms. So
do you do any of that? Do you have people that do that?
No, I don't. Like I can be like the producer, like on a movie set. Like I can tell you what it needs to look like.
Yes.
I can't do it.
You have the vision.
Right. And
why,
so
not the what.
Right. The vision. I can, you know, it's like Walt Disney always says, like, I don't play any instruments. I'm the orchestra director.
Yes.
Like that, that's kind of the entrepreneur. Is like, you know how it needs to sound. You don't know how to play the trumpet, you know? And so like for me, I can get people, I can get the right team together to do that, or at least try. And so, luckily I have a brother-in-law who's a master spreadsheet coder guy, and so he's the one that does all that stuff. But that's one of them. You know, we started another licensing business, you know, to see, hey, we just took 5 years to turn Tolman Media into one. Can we do it again, and can we do it faster? And that one's, you know, getting up and running, and we've sold like 5 or 6 territories already.
The weddings as well?
No, so this one's like home repair. So it's called Apex Service Pros, and it's
interesting.
It's like painting or anything, right? Like basically when you hire a contractor to come work on your house, like, you know, contractors are like gruff and they're mean and they're not business people.
Right.
So Apex is basically business people. We can generate super cheap leads for any kind of home repair, and then we sell it in a way that it's never been sold before, and then we send the contractor to do it.
Okay.
So we send like it's a lot of people need their houses painted. A lot of people need services done. They just don't know. They don't want to work with contractors, or at least, you know. So we basically, all we do is we generate really cheap leads, and we talk to them, and we provide, we get in their face. We provide value for these customers who want to paint their houses, and then we train our contractors to not be gruff, mean contractors, right?
Yeah.
Through the same thing we did in Tolman, we have a video portal that teaches them how to whatever, and then we send them on their way. So that's one of them. And then we started we really got our YouTube channel up and running, you know, called The Hobo Entrepreneur, and we've been experimenting, but we decided to actually start, and we went and bought a limo in Vegas at an auction, you know, so we can do limo time. So we started that, and that's just tons of work, and There's
I've
two
loved
more.
that, by the way. I think it's so funny.
I hope, man.
I wanted to say I watched your
Yeah.
video on that we were talking about before, the Disneyland one.
Yeah.
And basically the premise of the video is go to somewhere that kind of takes you out of your normal like wavelength in your brain.
Yeah.
And that will make you more creative. It'll give you better ideas and totally like open up your mind to new business thought. And that is so true.
Yeah.
I was reading a book recently and they talk about how like and it's what you said in the video too, like if you have a problem and you don't really know how to solve it and it's stressing you out, like get up, go for a walk, go for a jog, go play Nintendo or whatever.
Right.
And then a lot of times that other wavelength in the background will actually kind of solve it for you.
Yeah, I learned that in college. I learned that your brain is an amazing thing. And it was about homework, but they were like, if you're working on homework and you get to that point where you have the fatigue, where you're just like, dude, I can't.
Yeah.
Instead, like most students are trained, keep going, finish it before midnight. And actually the best way to do it is, let's say you have 3 hours left on the paper. Instead of just like cramming and just grinding for 3 hours and then throwing a subpar paper out, walk away for 2 hours, play some basketball, eat an apple, go get a drink, just change your scenario and then come back. And that last hour is actually going to be better and more maximized because your brain will have actually figured the problem out while you were at rest. And I was like, and I tried it and I was like, this is amazing. And so it's kind of the principle that I apply to my life is like, a lot of people are like, oh, you travel a lot, you're gone a lot. And I'm like, well, I'm not like playing. There's a huge difference between like traveling and tourism. Like tourism is like going to theme parks, right? Doing the tourist crap. Yeah. Wearing the fruit shirt, the buttons up. Like for me, it's like when I travel, like we'll go to like a ghetto cafe and talk to people there and understand their lives and people of different races and backgrounds and just, like that's what's so interesting to me is just to like these new fresh experiences and some of them are terrifying. Like I got back from Atlanta like 3 days ago. It was the freaking scariest city I've ever been to because it's empty right now. Except for like all the homeless people. Oh my god! And we got confronted multiple times, and as scary as it was, those are experiences. And so now when I come back, I'm like the last 2 days I've done probably 18-hour work days where it's just been like, but I can do that because I've like my brain is working out all these issues in the background, and then I can come back and I'm like I have so much that I want to do because my brain is like, here's your new to-do list, Brennan. Yeah. Because I haven't been thinking about it. And so like for me, like Disneyland is a happy place where I guess that is kind of a combination of tourism and travel. Like I can literally, it's like one of the only places where I totally turn my brain off of business and I just have fun. And then I come back and I have all these ideas, like my business partner and I have this routine where every night when I'm in a hotel, I'll have some idea at like 8 or 9 p.m. Because one of the things that I do when we travel, we always rent a car so we can drive through the back streets and just see the things, that you wouldn't see. Yeah. We'll always go to a local bookstore, and I'll always buy a local business book that I've never heard of, and then I'll go read it in the hotel that night. We usually check in at 7 or 8. I'll read it for like an hour or two, and suddenly I'm like, I have so many ideas because my brain's been passive. I have not been thinking about it, and then when I start reading, it combines my reading with what my brain has been working up. And suddenly, and I have like an hour and a half phone call with my business partner where I'm like, dude, I know what to do. And he's like, that's genius. And so even though it's like hard for him, I think that I'm gone, like physically gone 50% of the time. Yeah. He has kind of learned like, that's how I operate, like, and creativity is different for everyone. The best book I've ever read is called Brainstorm. It's by Don Hahn. I bought it in Disneyland when I was like 12. He's a producer of Lion King. Back in the day, they used to have a bookstore in Disneyland where all the Disney-related authors would put their work. And I bought this book. And it is purely on creativity. It's like $2 on Kindle. The best book I've ever read, besides like, the scriptures. And it's like Brainstorm. And it's just like, hey, if you need to stay up all night and sleep all day, do it. If you need to just go eat like 2 whole cheese pizzas yourself one day, do it. He's like, it's just like the most enabling book in the world because it's like you have a unique creative process that only you have. Like one of his stories is like, like the very beginning of Lion King, like, like that whole thing, the most iconic, like, beginning of a song in the world. Yeah. Well, like the process for that was like, he was checking into a hotel on a vacation. There was this African guy wearing an African garb who was like his like what's that called when you bring their like luggage up. I don't remember. That's like a
something boy.
Yeah, like a something boy.
Yeah.
Not a bus boy, but whatever. That guy brought his luggage up in his room, and he was like, "Hey," it was the composer who was doing all this. He's like, "Hey, I'm working on this song. Can you just like yell some stuff in like African about like a lion, just so I can like get an idea?" And he yells that, and he's like, "That's it." Like some busboy guy.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, and it talks about it in the book, and then he's like, "I'm gonna bring you to a studio. I'm gonna have you do that for me, and we're gonna put it in a song." And he's like, "Cool." This luggage guy, and it's like he just talks about the importance of like if you stay in your bubble all the time, and you only stay in your bubble, you will always be limited to your bubble.
Yeah.
You don't need a bunch of money to travel. You really don't. Like you don't need a huge budget. You don't need you can literally drive and do Airbnbs or camp. You can have experiences in any which way on any budget, and it's just important to have them because I think that the experiences that I've had when I have not been home have made me a better person, and my business will only ever be as good as me. My marriage, which is my number one priority, has severely been enhanced because of travel. Because I found things on travel that have made, like one example is like I used to have like really bad anxiety. Like if I sat down to like watch a movie at the end of the night of an 18-hour workday or whatever, like I couldn't, because I was just like I would start worrying about finances. I have to pause the movie and we would just have to talk, and like when we were in New York one time, I stumbled upon a thing called CBD, which is cannabinoid oil. I don't know. It's not weed,
right?
But it's basically some of the like really nutritious, relaxing parts of of the hemp plant.
Yeah. No
THC, no addictive substances, none of that at all, and it's pretty much just like gummies or whatever. That help you control anxiety.
Yeah, like relax and stuff. Yeah, I've heard of that.
And it's not like it's nothing addictive or anything, but I think especially in Utah, people are like terrified of it because it's mildly related to weed.
Yeah.
Sort of, and so like anyway, I bought a bag because I was like, oh, there's no THC, like I'm gonna try it, and like I use it every day now. From that, like, and my wife is like, I'm a different person. Like I'm so much more calm. I'm able to just like cope with the huge mounting pressure of being an entrepreneur and actually like put all my focus into not my worries and anxieties, but like to my projects, right? And so like that was New York City, in some subway that some guy was selling it, and like you just learn about things that you won't be exposed to when you get out. And so like Disneyland for me is like it's like a mecca, you know. Like we try.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, like
about Disneyland.
For me, it's like I go there and I come back with so many new ideas, and it'll make you better at your job, your desk job. It'll make you better at your business. It'll make you better at your whatever, to just like take a break from it. And, humans were born to create and explore. And unfortunately, like our society with like 9-to-5 jobs and all that stuff has kind of bottlenecked that a little bit.
Like tethered you to one specific place.
Because it's beneficial to employers. They want you to be completely tethered to them because it will make them passive, and they can then go live their whatever life. And I guess I'm now getting political, but for me, like I in every business I ever start, anybody we bring on to do any work for us, I always tell them I want there's no office, you do this wherever you want. It will be performance based, either a monthly retainer or per result. And I want you to literally be able to break free and have time. Like it's so important to me that you can spend time with your family. So I'm going to pay you, $2,500 a month to do X, Y, and Z. That's what it's worth to me to have those things done. I do not care how long it takes you. If you can do it in 5 hours, please.
I love that mindset, because coming from like I did sales for a while, and then now I'm in a corporate job, and the shift between like, hey, you're getting paid to be here versus you're getting paid to give us value is totally different.
And I think that's the benefit of the coronavirus. I hate to say it because I hate the coronavirus, but
I agree.
If there is a benefit of it, it's that people are realizing it's not about butts in a chair.
Yeah, and you're not tethered. All of a sudden, people are working remote. You can live anywhere. And like my team, again, corporate job, and then they're like, wait a minute, we're actually more efficient with all you guys at home.
Oh, yeah.
Like all of a sudden, you wake up when you want. You just have to get everything done. So you are motivated to do it fast, do it efficient.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, you know, our meetings are more succinct and they're more clear, and our work is easier and faster. I think it's really going to change the way that businesses are run.
I hope because I believe that everybody has so much more potential. It's called Parkinson's Law, where you know, what it means is if you have 8 hours, and 3 tasks, somehow those 3 tasks, they're going to take 8 hours.
I've never heard that law.
It's called Parkinson's Law.
I totally see that.
Homework.
True.
If you have homework and it's due in an hour,
or in 3 weeks,
or 3 weeks,
okay, I could do it today.
Same paper, but somehow, and it's a total. It's an actual law that exists. Go Google it. But Parkinson's Law, and so it's like I believe so strongly in just basically saying, you know, here's your freedom, here's your paycheck, or here's your performance paycheck. I trust you. Mm-hmm. Here, I care about the results. I don't care about the process. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's how I am. Like for me, the process is always ugly. When I'm like talking about our business in the first half, oh man, it sounds really. You're like, wow, Brennan's a genius, dude. It was awful. It was a total freaking mess all the time. Yeah. The process was the sloppiest, messiest, worst thing you can ever imagine. But the result, somehow we figured it out. You know, and like when I make cookies. Dude, I'm like, let's throw this ingredient in. Mix it up. And like, if you watch me make cookies, you'll be like, I will never eat the cookie. I will not touch that. But if you didn't watch the process and you just ate the cookie, you'd be like,
that's don't ask what's in the hot dog kind of thing.
Right. You'd be like, that's a good cookie. And so, like, that's kind of like my personal belief is like people, like, you know, if you worked 4 hours a day due to Parkinson's Law, and then you got the rest of the time off to go be with your family or vacation or 3 hours, or maybe, you know, 3 days a week, and then you get like a, you know, 4-day weekend. Yeah. I think that people would be more satisfied, more productive, and everything because I believe in people. Mm-hmm. And I think that people are way more capable than employers give them credit for. Yeah. And I hope that, you know, like my kids grow up in a world where that is a reality. If they choose to, you know, work for somebody else, which is totally fine, that other company will, I guess, roll back its greed a little bit and find new creative ways to enhance the lives of the employees. Which, you know, you're on a 3-month paternity leave. That's an awesome start.
The place I work, they told me that there's unlimited pay time off, and I was like, how could you do that? Yeah. How would that make sense? And then now I've worked there for a year and a half, and I'm realizing, like, all things you're just saying, like when people are incentivized to do something in the right way, when they're taken care of. And also, like, they're thinking about their life holistically. You know, it's not like I'm at work, I got to be here until 5, and then I can start living again. Right. You know, like, I can't wait till Friday when my life starts. Right. Rather than right now, it's just like, well, I got to get my work done, so I'll do it in as fast and efficient a way, and then take time off. Right. And do what I want, and then come back, and I'm refreshed. I have better ideas.
Exactly. And you're better because of it. Yeah. I mean, you are a better... I don't even know what you do, but I'm positive that you're a better employee because you know you can take as much time as you want off. Absolutely. And it's like this new progressive idea that's taking place, and I hope that it really gets a foothold, you know, in our society, because it's just like I really think that I have been ostracized absolutely by friends, by family for being gone all the time. And you know, I'm not offended. I get it. I get that it's a very, you know, the traditional 9 to 5, whatever. It's so different. But for me, I'm like, I think that the world will start to understand, you know, the more time you have just off to be yourself, do whatever you want, man. Play video games, go on a trip with your wife, play with your kid, whatever you want. Like, however you want to spend your time, do it. You'll be more productive in the hours that you do work. Yeah. Always, you know, because of it. It's Parkinson's Law. It's a real thing, you know.
And you get pulled. I've noticed, like, when you just let your mind kind of relax, and like, okay, I'm just going to do exactly what I want to do. Like, I don't have a responsibility. Right. You get, like, attracted or pulled to specific things, and that tells you a lot about yourself. You're like, oh, yeah, I can do anything I want, and I went to New York and bought this book. Right. You know, I'm like, oh, wait, what does that mean about me? Like, I like reading, I like learning. Sure. No one told me to. Right. I've seen this in my own life. Like, when my parents... tried to get me to learn piano. Oh, yeah. You know, been there, done that, yeah. Sat me down, like, hey, every day at this exact time. And I tried it for, like, a year and, like, sucked.
You hate it.
Hated it.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's piano time. Okay, my brain would go to, like, that part that's almost robotic. Right. That's just, like, you know, like, waiting in line. Totally. Like, I just have to do this. And then years later, I did that when I was like 11. Now
Yeah.
I'm like 16, 17.
Yeah.
And I just get pulled to it, and now I'm practicing like 3 or 4 hours a day just because it was what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I know that's a hard balance because
Sure.
at a job you can't just be like, oh,
Right.
just do whatever the freak you want.
Right.
But I wonder over time what's going to happen. If we're going to
Yeah.
have like
Same.
things are going to become like an individual can just maybe decide his own role. I mean, that sounds kind of far-fetched, but...
Well, and I also believe that, like, like, you know, your handbook, whoever trained you to do your job,
Mm-hmm.
that's the most B- way that you could possibly do that job. I promise you.
Yeah.
However you got trained to do that.
Uh-huh.
So, like, you know, it's, like I was saying, it's like the most, however you got trained, it's the most B- version. And what your company is doing by allowing you unlimited paid time off, 3 months paternity leave, is they're basically investing in you because they know that the way they trained you sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And most companies don't. Most companies think that the way that the handbook says it is the only and the best way.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you have so many experiences from your, you know, I don't know, 26, 27, from your 26, 7 years of life, that if you could bring, if you're willing, if you love the company enough to bring that, and you feel like you have the freedom enough to bring that to the table, you're going to make that B- version A+, because you're going to start adding read to the job, you know? And that's what most companies never do. When they lock you in the 9-to-5 servitude and they give you the handbook and you're never allowed to operate outside the handbook, they never allow you to bring what you actually truly have to bring. You become a monkey turning a wheel, doing a job, instead of a human being pushing their thoughts and their feelings and their soul into the job, which is a totally different thing. And so, like, on paper, doesn't make sense to give unlimited. I promise you, their accountants just like pooped their pants when they were like, no, we're going to do unlimited paid time off. I know that it happened, you know, because it doesn't make sense. But when you actually look at it, you know, like from a, I guess, just like a social economic point of view, it's like, dude, like, no, you're gonna put more read into the job because there's more read to put in the job.
Yep.
Because, you know, when you have half the time off, or, you know, when we actually have 20, 30 hours a week to play, you are a more full, you know, capable, happy individual. Therefore, when you do show up to play, you show up to play.
Well, it's like when people step into a problem. You know, like you get hired your first day on the job and you notice all these things. Like, well, why do you do it this way? And everyone who's been working there for a long time is like, whoa, we never thought of that.
Right.
I think that that's kind of what happens when you allow yourself to take a break, to kind of grow outside of the job.
Yeah.
Is that you're that person stepping in. If you never let yourself kind of get out of the sphere, and you're always like in that one type of wavelength, like this is how we do things.
Yeah.
You never let the creative brain kind of kick in.
Totally.
Then you don't see things from that different perspective.
And I think that, you know, the corporate America, they don't want you to, man. You know, most companies do not want you to question.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in elementary school, like in junior high, in high school, you get in trouble if you question the way that they know. It's like, this is how it is. I'm teaching you how to follow. And that's why you've heard it a million times, you know, where like, you know, the entrepreneurs get C's and the employees get A's, because really what school does, yes, it teaches you education, but it teaches you how to be a follower.
Yes. You
know, and I've always so disagreed with that. And I was in trouble all the time growing up, you know? And like in college, I'll give you an example. Like in college, I was in an entrepreneurship class and I was like, this is gold. This dude, but the professor was just this awesome guy, very hardcore, like authoritarian. You will be in my class at this time. You know, it's BYU, so he's like, if you have like any facial hair, I will force you to drop the class. That kind of a guy, right? So you got these nuggets of gold, but you have this crazy authoritarian like dude. And like the first month, I learned so much from this guy, and I was like, I'm gonna go apply it because I have a business, which at the time was me freelancing. So I went to some of the companies I was working with. I used the sales techniques he taught me. I used the methods that I learned. I actually went and applied the things that I learned on paper, and it worked. And they were like, hey, that's a good point. Brennan, I'd like to fly you out to Atlanta to film this thing. And I was like, oh! But then guess what? I was going to miss his class. So if I went, I was going to miss Mr. You know, authoritarian dude's class.
How ironic. And
so I said, I'm going to do it because screw it. I know that like, this is the best way for me to actually learn what he's teaching me.
Yeah.
And so I went. And the next day, the next class period that I showed up for, he singled me out, came up to me, and he was like, "Where were you? You didn't do the reading." I mean, he just chewed me out.
Yeah.
I did not get a chance to explain myself. Whole class was just like, "Who's that loser?" And I was like, whatever. Like, you know, like I know that it was worth it. And then at the end of the semester, months later, like finally at the end of the semester, our assignment was submit a 1-page document on what you have done with what you learned. And I was like, oh boy. And so I'm like, I flew to Atlanta. I met my business partner, Nick Crone. I think it said again. Did it? No, probably not.
I didn't hear it.
Anyways, I'm like, I flew, I did all, and I read this big, huge paper, and I'm like, hey, and I submit it to this guy who thought I was a total loser because that one time I missed the class. And the last day we show up, and he's like, I want to apologize publicly to Brennan, and I want to actually invite you to basically speak. And I was like, what? And he's like, come speak on what you've learned. And that was amazing that he like recognized that. But dude, with as many times, I mean, that happened probably 500 times in college where the professor hated me for trying to apply what I learned, and because it wasn't conventional. But yeah, it was the only time anybody ever apologized for it, you know. And so that's when I kind of learned, like, at the end of the day, you know, it's life is all about just applying things and bringing yourself to, you know, what you've learned. And like, I think success happens at a crossroads, you know, like between like two things, you know. So you have like Reed Fletcher's whole background, and then you have this job that you're supposed to do. If they can just get you to bring the Reed Fletcher into the job, then you'll have success because you have something nobody else has, you know. And so, like, I don't know. Point is, like, I hope that the world goes to a flexible work hour situation, you know, world in the future.
Kind of makes you want to kind of go after it yourself, though, you know, like you're already doing, like, start something. That's kind of the reason why I've even been doing this. Just the
dude, I love it.
Of expressing in some way, because you're right. Go to a corporate job, and a lot of times. And my job's a terrible example. They do great. They're good at letting people grow and unlimited paid time off and all that. But I've worked a lot of different jobs where it's essentially like, well, just step here, walk here, talk here, do this.
Right.
And like, you're right. That's not really you.
No.
You know? Just another cog in the machine.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, you gotta treat people like people, and like believe in people, because people are amazing, you know. Like people are motivated by so much more than just money. Yeah, they always are. I mean, what's the point of life if you don't have the lifestyle? Yeah. And I think that the companies that provide the lifestyle are going to be the ones that, you know, do well. But dude, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Is there anything people can do, their listeners, to like support you? Can they find you somewhere? Or?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be to just follow our YouTube channel.
Okay.
The Hobo Entrepreneurs. So
it's awesome.
We release 2-3 videos a week, and all about, like, you know, business, entrepreneurship, you know, technology, whatever, man. So
awesome. Well, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate it. This is super fun.